You're listening to the Sonic Ninjas podcast. Follow us on Instagram at the Sonic Ninjas and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Sonic Ninjas.
All right. Hello, everybody on Facebook land and the internets. What's going on, Bradley Dean?
What's going on with you today, Eddie Kaipo?
Oh, man. You know, the huge, just, getting through the day, trying to stay busy, trying to stay active somehow.
Tell me you've done something exciting this week.
Oh, well, besides returning a bunch of packages for Amazon,
Oh,
stuff that showed up broken. What exciting. I tried grooming our dog, and that didn't work out too well. It looks like a little rat now. But
yeah, that probably didn't go so well.
No, it wasn't too good. And then I am actually going to try to, by recommendation of our good friend Pablo, I got this water pressure thing that I'm going to try out. The first one came broken, so I returned it, and I just got the other one yesterday. So that's something exciting that I'm going to do today, I guess, non-music related.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. You know how much I love that kind of stuff, home improvement.
So if next week we show up on here and you've got scratches all over your body, we'll know what happened. We'll know it didn't go so well.
Yeah. That's pretty much how it works. You're pretty good at that stuff, though, right? I'm horrible at home improvement stuff.
Well, if I read the directions, I'm okay. But a lot of times I tend to go too far, and then I read it, and something doesn't work right, and then I go back and read the directions and realize that I got to start all over.
Or you have like 20 screws left?
20 screws left, and it's wobbling off the wall, and I wonder why.
When since I was little, anything that is type of like a key or anything like it's like pre-built and you kind of put it together, I always like the challenge of doing it without the instructions, and I only grab it if I get stuck somewhere. But lately, I need instructions for everything, man.
I don't know, that IKEA furniture, you definitely need to look at the instructions, and then you're still lucky if you can figure it out.
That's true. It gets more complicated every time. Not as complicated in streaming, but
No, but we've gotten better.
We're getting better. Hopefully, for whoever was watching us last time, Brad's microphone was cutting out a lot. And I think it had to do something with the way we were streaming and Zoom and blah, 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 and OBS, all this stuff. And I think now we should be okay. People will be able to hear every word that you're saying.
Every word.
And especially the Spanish words that you say.
Claro,
see? Are we going to do that again? Are we going to go through that again?
Better at that. I just added that to my Spanish vocabulary.
That's good. We gotta, it's been how many years now working with Enrique and you still don't speak a word of Spanish? Come on, dude.
But I think when we get back at it and I lay some Spanish on you guys, you're going to be surprised.
Really?
Claro.
You're getting, every time you say Claro, it's getting better too. Before I forget, I want to say thank you to Jeff Subaru, who very kindly allows us to use his music as our in and out of our Facebook Live. So thank you to Jeff and his project Patrito.
That is a killer track. I know I say it every time, but
it's cool. That's why I kind of don't want to change it, but I guess I should change it because he's got killer music too. And, anybody who wants us to use their music, I'll be happy to put it up there. This one in particular, of course, I was privileged to mix it. So that's why I'm showcasing that as well as his music. And it's so cool. It worked really well, I think. It's a cool song.
It's a very cool song.
Let's see who has joined us here.
All right.
We got Daniel, we got Ashton. Bradley Dean has joined us. Thanks for joining us, Brad. Appreciate it.
I always say that. I have to look at the questions.
I know.
Right? Is there any other way that I can join?
I don't think so, no. But that's cool because it ups the numbers. I like it.
Please on here again.
We got Jeff there. Hey, who's that guitarist? What a wanker, he says. I'm like, yeah. I hear he's a good tennis player. Tater's here with us. Danny Munoz. He's watching us live. That's so awesome. He's so excited. I'm excited that you're here too. Same with Tater and everybody that is watching us. This is so cool. We got more people than before. Hopefully we won't bore you. We have a couple things we want to talk about that we've been asked this particular question a few times, and how do we deal with this? And anybody watching, please, if they have comments, one thing I wanted to run by you, Brad, is your preparation offline. You know, we all know that if we have the console in front of us, you know, we can literally just sit there and start programming the whole thing. But you know, I guess most consoles nowadays give you the opportunity to do things offline. So how do you handle it? What do you do? Where do you start? Do you have a template, or do you just start from zero depending on the artist? How much preparation or time you put into the offline setup of your show file?
I'm going to go as far as I can go with the offline editor. I don't really have a template. I'm gonna lay everything out from, you know, VCA assignments to groups to, you know, high pass filter and EQ and turn on the compression and, you know, turn on the gate, set up groups, you know, do any sort of routing. I'm going to take it as far as I can go. If I don't have, you know, virtual sound check in the console in front of me, I'm still going to go as far as I can go, you know, even if I don't have the audio, so that when I do get on the console, it's, you know, a lot shorter time to get set up and running. I think one thing that would be really cool to be able to do that I think we're limited with, especially on the S6, is that if we start on the online editor or the offline editor, we're not able to load plugins, as far as I know, unless there's some workaround or somebody has discovered something that I don't know. Once you're in the desk and you load the plugins, then you go back to the offline editor, they're there, and then you're able to manipulate it.
Yeah, I think that's what I found too, that if you have a show file that maybe you started off of to start your new file, and you already had certain plugins in it, then you can move them around.
Yeah.
But they don't really pop up on a list for you to use.
And you can't edit the parameters of the plugin at all.
No, that would be a cool thing to do, I think.
So it's a little bit limiting that way. It must be a big ordeal to code the software to allow you to edit the parameters of the plugin, or otherwise I would feel like they would have done it by now.
That's true.
You know,
do you ever do any snapshots offline, or do you mostly like configure your setup and kind of assign groups and things like that mostly? You know,
if I am pretty knowledgeable about the input list and the band that I'm going to work for, and let's say I've got, you know, a lot of background vocals, and I know the music, and I know there's, you know, where there's no background vocals, maybe I go ahead and do the mutes. You know, the same thing if there's acoustic guitars and electric guitars, I may tend to mute those guitars that aren't being used. I would keep the snapshot simple, you know, with mutes. Maybe, I don't know. I don't even really know if I could do any fader moves without the music, but I think that would be as far as I would go. Maybe I would, you know, go ahead and set the BPMs for the delay time and do snapshots for every single song with the BPM in there so that I know that's all done. I'd probably take it as far as I could go without having any music.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an amazing tool to have to prepare. I usually tend to either use a template file, or if a show that I have from another artist, their input list or their setup or my approach is going to be very similar, then I can start it from that show and build from there. And at that point, all my plugins and everything are kind of in place. I know what I'm using for my drums. I know what I'm using for my bass, guitars, or whatever. And I'm a big believer in templates and presets and things like that we have developed throughout the years. Like anything that will expedite your process, you know. Of course, you're going to fine tune things. And of course, we're going to, you know, the sounds that we're receiving from the source will be different once we get to that first rehearsal, first sound check. But for the most part, how much harder, you know, does a drummer hit a kick drum? Or like, if you know you're going to have drums, then you put all your settings on the drums. Mm-hmm. And chances are you're going to be really close, if not already kind of there, based on your gain structure and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I think so as well. And, you know, there's things like parallel processing and all the different sorts of group processing that you may do. You can go ahead and set that up in advance as well. Have that all taken care of. Because I know that I'm always going to do parallel processing on drums. Always. 9 times out of 10, maybe I'm going to do parallel processing on the bass guitar as well.
Yeah.
So I think the further you can go, the better off you are. Because we have become creatures of habit. I don't know about you, but I'm always going to pick the same compressor and EQ for the drum group and the parallel group. And, then once I hear things, I may experiment and try other things.
Yeah, and that helps us. I mean, a lot of times we don't have time to start looking for something. We already know we have our go-to, processing favorites per se, or plugins, or just ways that we do things. Even if we're using onboard EQ and compression or whatever, we know, okay, I'm gonna high pass these, I'm gonna low pass these, and I'm gonna do this kind of curve on them right away, and you already know.
Yep.
So all those kind of things help us expedite it. And the offline thing, I use it quite a bit. A lot of times to create, my own presets, my own setup presets, or for mixes. I can copy paste mixes and do things like that, and just kind of expedite the process on soundcheck, especially with a new artist. Instead of using an hour or something to dial them up, the whole band, everybody, I'm ready in 10 minutes. It's kind of makes it a little easier, I think.
That's the big difference between you and me. You have like 25 mixes. I got one.
Yeah, But you also get to mix in many ways the way you want it to sound, where I have to cater to the artist and the band members, and it's a little different. I try to put my signature on it, but at the end of the day, it's what they want, what they need. So that is one thing that I miss from the house, and that I envy every time we're doing a show, in a good way, of course, that you get to do that. But I try to always have that fun and be very musical when I'm mixing for them as well. Anyway, so let me see who else. Oh, John Corin is saying, "What's up, nerds?" What's going on, John? Mark Abad, hello from Catalonia. We got Pedro Romero, Danny Munoz. Question. We have our first question of the day, I think, unless I missed someone.
Hey, did you see, speaking of Danny, have you seen his monitors that he's building?
Yes. Isn't that cool?
It's very cool.
But that's what we were talking about a second ago. I will probably butcher those things so badly. Like, mine will be all like off shape and everything. I mean, he's good. I can't wait to hear those now. Maybe I'll order a pair from him.
Yeah, they look really cool.
Maybe, are you taking any endorsees, Danny? I'll show you a speaker right here on Sonic Ninjas. Hey, how you doing? Anyway, so Danny has a question. Let's see. Do you guys plan on using that new Plugin Alliance plugin in host on your live shows, or you're sticking to Waves UAD host, and why?
Oh, that's a good one.
Go for it, Bradley Dean.
Take this one.
Yeah.
I would very much like to see Plugin Alliance and Avid get a nice working relationship going, to where we could safely load those plugins into the S6 and use them live. They make some really great channel strip emulations, great EQs, great effects. I mean, I love the Wave stuff as well, because I've been using it for a long time. But I think it's another type of paint to use in the painting, or another color to use.
Yeah.
It would be great. I mean, I probably shouldn't say this, but I have been using a couple of Plugin Alliance plugins on the S6. Some that were released.
Guilty.
Well, they did release. There was an Avid Venue bundle.
Yeah.
That Plugin Alliance released early on. That they've since, whether Avid stopped supporting Plugin Alliance or Plugin Alliance stopped supporting Avid, I don't know which way it went. But I still use the Digital V3 every show, and I use Transient Designer, and I've used the SSL 4000E strip. What else have I tried? Probably Shadow Hills I've tried as well. They just make some really good things.
Yeah, I use, we're so similar to that. What's
Guilty
that?
As charged.
Say it again. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah. we're so similar that way. On my master buses going to in-ears, I also have a digital V3, and then I also use on some inputs. I use Transient Designer. They make great stuff, and I have tried Shadow Hills or the Vertigo and all this great stuff that they make, and they make so much cool stuff. And of course, in the studio, we use them all the time. I wish, like you said, that they would work that out. We do use Waves and we do use UAD, but something that we were talking about yesterday actually was how cool would it be if another company, because I understand each company perhaps they don't want to change their software, the coding to adapt to all these consoles or whatever, but if there was a third-party company that will somehow take that heavy lifting from everybody else, and they will translate the coding or however that works, where any plugin could be used through their platform on any console.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
All plugin manufacturers basically make an AAX coded plugin for Pro Tools. So why not come up with some sort of DSP box that would handle the AAX format, and you could connect it via MADI or Ethernet or whatever the connection might be.
Yeah.
To the S6.
Yeah, as the users, I feel that that's a good thing. And this is not really I wouldn't consider a criticism or a critique. It's more like a request. I think there are many engineers out there that will like to see that. Like, I want to use Slate stuff, and I want to use, more of the Plugin Alliance stuff and Waves. And obviously, there are other ones that are always native into the console, like Mac DSP and all those things. But they're all different colors. There's different. It's not that we support one more than the other. It's just we like those tools so we can choose what do we need for this particular artist at this particular moment, maybe even for this particular song. We can get as picky as we want. And sometimes you wonder. We're in the studio and we're able to use all these plugins that are, like you said, AAX.
I was just going to say that.
And then we're like, okay, well. We just created this really cool preset, or I love the way it sounds on these vocals or whatever. Let me bring it in, and you can't. So I think we're to a point that it needs to happen. I don't know how, because I don't do coding, I don't do any of that stuff. So I think it would be really cool if we were able to merge those worlds completely. Where we can bring any of our plugins that we normally would use and use them live, with no restrictions or no compatibility issues. I have an HTX card here. I would assume they're the same as the one we use in the console, and it should just work.
Right. Yeah, like you said, we get into Pro Tools, and you can load any plugin in that you so desire to use. Why shouldn't we be able to do it on the S6?
That's true, too.
That's my question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. If you want to look over the questions, I was going to say one thing we didn't touch about that we really should talk about with regards to the show files is who retains the ownership or the rights to the show file? Like, let's say you've worked with a band for 5 years and you've created your show file, and somebody's coming in and they want to keep your show file. How do you feel about that? Do you think...
That's a very, very sensitive subject, I believe. And I think...
Let's stir the pot a little, shall we?
Yeah, why not, right? This is an important conversation. I think the short answer as far as who owns the file, I believe that we own the file as the engineers. If we built it, we created it, we own that file. I think it's our intellectual property.
Yes.
Now, there are variables to that as far as if you were hired to design a show for someone and then you just leave it with them and walk away, then that's different, because then you created a certain mix knowing that you're not going to be there, knowing that you're kind of selling it to them or whatever. You either pay a certain price for you to kind of build it and then you're walking away.
And that's designated in the conversation that you have beforehand.
Oh, yeah, of course.
A show.
Of course, yes.
fair enough to hand
but
it
there are
over walk away.
situations where, managers, whether it's production managers or true managers, whoever, or managers, sometimes they think that they just own it and then they're supposed to use it, and or they even, you know, they try to get it off your console, or they try to find ways to, steal it, for lack of a better word. And I find that to be just dirty and just not acceptable.
Right.
First of all, they could just ask for it. But at the end of the day, that's our work. It took us years of experiences and working with all these different artists to create, like I was talking about earlier, presets and templates, and to be able to do things that quickly. I think it will be incredibly unfair that I put all that work into it. I go work for an artist, let's just say for a few months or whatever, and then I have to go somewhere else, or they let me go for some reason, and then they go, but they want to keep my file, so the next guy could come in and use my stuff. Meanwhile, maybe they will tell me, oh, we don't like what you're doing, but leave us your file.
Right.
And then this person comes in and goes, oh, it sounds really good. I was like, well, they're using my file. Like, it's unfair that, as well as I never like to use anybody's file. Never. And I haven't, some people have tried. They say, oh, you come in, you have to use this file. If that person is no longer coming back and I'm being hired to do the job, then I just simply will not use someone else's file. Because either I'm going to succeed by my own merit, or I'm going to fail by my own, guilt, or my own fault, I should say. So I don't want to succeed because of someone else's hard work, and I don't want to fail because of it either. So I think it's important to I don't know, emphasize that it's important that we use our stuff. And if I'm subbing for someone, which is rare, and they say, here's my show file. If you don't mind, please use this. Keep the artist happy, make it quicker. It's like, of course, that's different, because I'm stepping into someone's shoes temporarily, like for a day or a week. But I know that it's not my gig. I need to come in and just be, I don't need to change anything. But if that person wasn't around and they were let go, or they left and they're hiring me because of my reputation or my knowledge or whatever, then I'm going to give them what I do,
Yep.
And I think that's ours. I think we own that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree totally, 100%. Feel the same way.
I think it's a sort of a sensitive subject for many. And I think someone was asking something about that, maybe, or maybe not. But so yeah, I mean that's, I know it's come up many times, But if it's an artist, for instance, that you spend so many years, and you're part of the family, and all of a sudden you finally move on, and you don't want to leave them stranded,
Exactly.
So I think you have to also play it by, you have to keep all those things in mind. If it's someone that, has always treated you good, and they take care of you, and you never have any beef, and you help them as much as you can. Like,
I think each circumstance, each situation would be a little bit different, and you would treat it as such.
Yes. And the thing is, yes, each situation will be different. You apply whatever you feel appropriate for that situation. But the reality for me, the bulk of it is that is our property. That is our intellectual property. I don't know if there's any laws that specifically protect that, or if there is, we will need to figure out how to make it be legal for us to protect it, find a way to do that. But
yeah, the file was created with your knowledge and talent.
Yeah.
What created that file. You didn't just go, buy it somewhere for $59 for the 1-year subscription plan.
Yeah.
You created it. You through years of experience and hard work and learning how to mix, and it's a result of your own hard work and dedication, as far as I can say.
Yeah, and obviously we didn't invent sound or EQs or compression. None of that is our invention. But it's the same as a writer. You know, a writer didn't invent words, but the one thing they did create is the way they combine them, the way they put them together. That's what creates a good book.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, and that's their property. You know, the way they combine those words is what makes them, you know, who they are and how they do it. So I think it's important to emphasize that it is ours. You know, unless otherwise stipulated on a contract, or, you know, if I'm ill and I need someone to cover for me, of course, you know, here's my file. Just go make sure my artist is great. You know, I have people that they say, oh, you know, here's my file, or a management says, you know, hey, here, we're gonna give you a file and the file has nothing in it, or it's booby trapped too sometimes. Not by them, but by the previous engineer sometimes, where the stuff is booby trapped with stuff that, because they don't want to give it away, and their way of rebelling against it is booby trapping. I'd rather not booby trap. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I'd rather say, you know what, I'm not comfortable giving away my file.
Right.
I'm not comfortable. That's mine, and I don't feel that I could just give it away. You know. So yeah, I mean that's a very good question. Let me see who else is. There's some questions here.
Oh, David Ambrosio's on here.
And we got some viewers. I like it. There's some good questions. I think Danny was asking also, to go back to what Danny was asking about the plugin alliance thing. He goes, Eddie, it says, Eddie, does plugin alliance through their host will do any audio unit plugin? I'm not sure if I understand that. It's plugin alliance though. It's plugin alliance though. Their host will do it. Any audio units plugin. Yeah, I mean they have that platform where you can run any of their plugins, right? And any other plugins that are audio units, correct? I'm not too certain about that, but I think that's what he's referring to. But I don't know if we were able to do that on our live consoles. But I know there's also a third-party company that. Who do we see doing that had Slate plugins running through, but the latency was a little steep?
I think it was one of our gigs in Russia.
Yeah, and it was like an app that you add to, and you use your laptop, and you basically you have insert points, and you can run basically any plugin at this point.
I think it was called AudioStrom.
Is that what it was?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I think it added too much latency. I mean, you can get away with maybe reverbs and delays, but let's see. So Jeff Subaru has a question. I have a friend that says he can make Logic stock plugins sound as good as Waves. His name was like...
I read that already.
Oh, my God. And I started reading it, too.
Yeah.
Or Grady.
That's it. Jeff's song has to go. We can't play. He's
Okay, Jeff, you just lost. We're not playing your song anymore. But you know what? It's funny he says that, because I do have a friend who actually makes some stuff for a very successful band. I guess I could mention, I think he makes Toto's album, one of their albums in the last few years. And he did it all in Logic. And my understanding is that he did, most of the plugins he used were the stock plugins. A little bit of Waves, I think, and some Toontrack. You know, and it sounds great. I mean, I literally call him and say, dude, this sounds great. What did you use? He's like, oh, I just mixed it in the box, and I just use mostly the stock plugins. I'm like, what?
And see, I would think that I totally get that could be done based on how great the original tracks sound. Like, how much do I really have to do to the tracks that were given me?
That also comes into play, yes.
I mean, sometimes you get amazing tracks and you're like, wow, it sounds great like it is. I'll just put a little air in it and we're good to go, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get a track and you're like, okay, I'm going into surgery today. Let's see what I can do with this.
I get a few
I'm a
of those.
doctor.
Yeah, all of a sudden we're doctors. Well, that's very true. You know, it depends on what the source is, right? And that goes for live or studio. If the source is really good, then you're not gonna have to fix things. You're just gonna, process things the way they sound good musically. The thing is, I think it always goes back to what we always say. It's about the music, and if you don't have those high-end plugins or processing or whatever, you make do with what you have. It might take you longer to achieve a certain sound, or you might have to run it twice, whatever. But you can make great things with what's there. I mean, I think we get caught up sometimes on like we got to have the latest of the greatest, or we got to have, all these plugins, or a dog plugin, a dog gate plugin. Is that your dog in the background?
That's my dog gone crazy.
What's the name? Betty?
Betty.
Anyway,
Betty.
so yeah, we get caught up on trying to have the latest and greatest, and at the end of the day, what's the name? Betty? Oh,
Sorry.
You're repeating me now.
Yeah.
It has to. We can do anything we want with the tools that we're given. So if you don't have all the high end stuff or all the bundles of plugins and this and that, all the brand names, use the stock stuff. If you get creative, you can get it done right. It could sound really good,
I always say, I'm going to turn the knob until I like the way it sounds, regardless of what it is that I'm working on or working with. If you're given a set of stock plugins or a Behringer console or whatever, a Mackie or whatever it might be, you're going to turn that knob until it sounds good, and then you stop and you move on.
Yeah.
You know?
So here's a question from James Hopkins. What if the artists want to continue to use the file you have created? I guess for either one of us, I guess if you want to take that one.
I think it would depend on the circumstances. Am I leaving to go somewhere else and I want the relationship to remain, intact and on good standing? Am I being let go and they want my show file? I mean, I think it's kind of got to depend on the situation, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I've had conversations with people who are talking about these files, that they want to keep your file, they want to use your file, or they feel that they have the right to your file, where, they've been misinformed, first of all, but they think that just by loading the file, everything's just going to magically be there. And there's more to that, At the end of the day, we are mixers, and we are mixing things. So the file gets you to a certain point, and then the rest we're doing manually.
Yeah. The file doesn't get you my ears, it gets you a physical thing to work with.
Correct. And that's, I can't stress that enough, that the file is not going to just save you from a show and just not, it might save you time from starting from scratch, but it's saving the new guy the time that we put in, years to be able to do that for us, anyway, it is a sensitive subject, and I think it could also go long talking about that, and everybody has a different opinion. Some people think that the artist does own the file, which I disagree, and I've seen that happen where people, no, this file is owned by the artist, or if you even make presets on the guitar, those presets are owned by the artist. No, bullshit. They're not,
Yeah, I don't, not at all.
Let's see, who else?
Mauricio is here again.
What's going on, Mauricio? ¿Cómo estás? Daniel Krylov. Eddie said it is an intellectual property. Dan Kinney saying it is your intellectual property unless it's a one-off that you agree to work for hire. See, that's where it gets. This is that fine line, because the word work for hire, I don't just show up and start doing something right then and then during the time that I'm being paid. If I have a one-off that I'm going to, I'm doing a lot of preparation on my own time. I'm doing, what we were talking about earlier, the offline setup. We're prepping offline. I'm loading presets that I use with 10 other artists or whatever to save me time. Oh, what do we have on the input list? Oh, they have a SM91. Okay, I already have my preset for that, for EQ and compression and gates. Boom, I load that up. What kind of, is it a rock thing? Oh yeah, so then I have a preset for that instead of dialing from scratch. So those are things that I developed throughout the years. So there is no ownership of that. And there can't be. At least I don't see it. And maybe we get a lawyer to join us and maybe they can explain something better, but I don't see that being
No.
anybody's property if that's something that we're using, especially that we did on our own time, I guess the point could be argued if we're starting from zero at a location that is exclusively for the preparation and pre-production and programming of a brand new show, maybe. Like in theater, for instance. I would assume that in theater they're going to own everything, but everything that they do it in-house as they're building the show. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think that might apply a little different. Marisa says that you speak Spanish, but you just pretend not to. What do you answer to that?
What's that?
Mauricio?
Yeah.
He says, amazing chat. Brad speaks Spanish, but he pretends not to.
No habla español. Claro.
Armando, what's going on? Spagoo is on too.
Go.
What's up, Spagoo? How you doing, buddy?
Bruce Dans is on here.
Yep. Man, we got some people. I love it. Mauricio made a comment also. He says, it is your intellectual property, but even if they use your show file, they don't have your taste, which is kind of what you said as well.
It's true. They don't.
Yeah, but for me, it's the principle. Brad, everything in my life, everything has to be around principle. And if someone is trying to take your file, like I said, I've been in a situation where I have to erase the file from a console because someone's trying to grab it. And that's just unacceptable to me. That's just unethical, I think it's important to respect that, to respect those boundaries too,
Uh-huh.
Especially after you've been asked and you say, what, I'm not comfortable with that, so no, I'm not giving away my file, and then they keep trying to grab it somehow. Life Professor, I think is what he said. Danny was saying that app was called.
Okay. Mauricio, I'm still waiting for a recipe for mole.
Mole, not mole.
What?
Come on, man. You should know that by now.
Mole. Mole. My Spanish is not that good. No bueno.
Marisa makes some great comments here too. Very, very nice of him too. Yes, we lose focus on the tools and forget what is the most important, the song, right? He also says, if I use your show file, I would never, ever, ever sound like the Sonic Ninjas. Thank you for that, Marisa, and you're helping us prove our point in a way. Pablo Valoy.
Pablo. You see what's in the background, Pablo? The gold
I guess
top.
he does. Thank you, James. Great question. What's going on, Charlie? Sorry, I'm just taking a minute here to make sure we acknowledge everybody who takes the time to come see us and join us. We got Leonardo, Bruce, the dynamic duo, says Leonardo. Love you, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. Here, Nick Asonto.
Oh.
Everyone has his own workflow and creative way of mixing. I personally don't think I can start with someone else's file. As far as ownership, it depends on your agreement. This will be the same as source code. This is why very important to be clear since the beginning and let them know it's your property. I could not agree more. Like that's a great way of putting it as well. And you know, as I mentioned before, at least I don't like using anybody's file. And I had an anecdote one time actually when I started with Tears for Fears. You know, they had someone who, you know, did the sound for the tour previous to me, I guess, or maybe he was one or two before or whatever. And production was telling me, you know, hey, you know, we would like for you to use this file. And I'm like, well, you know, send it to me and I'd like to see it. And I was being open because obviously I wanted to work with him or whatever. And I checked it out and I was like, you know what? It's not bad, but this is nowhere near something that I will do. Like, this is not the way I approach. Like he was saying, like Nick was saying, it's not the workflow that I have. And I could just tell by the file that it's not the type of sound that I would want to give him. Like I said, there is no right or wrong. It's just a different approach. And I kind of was, at the risk of losing the gig, kept putting my foot down that no, I was going to do my own thing. And literally leading up to 30 minutes before the band showed up to rehearse, that was being pushed on me. Like, you have that file loaded, right? And I was like, no, I already built my own. I'm all set. And maybe I was being stubborn, but I was like I said before, if I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna fail by my own on my own terms, you know. And
Yeah,
same
and
if
you
I'm
don't know that show file. So if somebody asks you a question about something, you're searching for things, you've already missed it.
yeah, and then you know you can also see, like I said, you can also see that an approach is nothing that I will do. You know, it's completely different. You know, so I was like, and then anyway, I at that risk of losing my gig, I was like, no. And then band shows up, they do their rehearsal, and they loved it. They were like, oh, this is great, and they were really happy. It was one of the best experiences that I had, and I worked with them for a little while, and it was awesome. And so that proves to me, and that happened in other situations too, where you just, you know, you have to stand your ground a little bit and believe in that what you're going to do is good. And like I said, not necessarily using someone else's file would ever be the answer. You know, different workflow, just different way of doing things. Or if it ended up badly and someone left them a booby trap file or just an empty file, nobody knows. Sometimes they don't know.
Yep.
You know, it's not the Holy Grail. My brother joined. What's going on, Juan Manuel? What if you lose the file? How long would it take you to set up, let's say, Enrique's show? Take that, Bradley Dean.
If you lost the file,
If you lost your file, how long would it take you to set up Enrique's show from scratch?
I think I could probably set it up. I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe an hour or two tops if I lost the file, because I've worked with it so much. And Enrique's show file is based on how I've you know, set up my mixes for the last, I don't know, 10 years or longer. I have a certain way that I set things up every time. You know, whether it's when I work with Garbage or the band Him or Enrique, everything was the same. So I would set it up exactly the same as I always do. And yeah, I think maybe at 2 hours tops to get it up and running again if I lost the show file.
No, that's using virtual soundcheck or going with the band or no soundcheck at all. Like, those are different variables. Those are variables, you know.
Okay, so now we're talking no sound check at all.
I just threw a curveball at you.
I would still set it up in the same amount of time. Again, having mixed the band for so long, I think I could pretty much get everything where it needed to be with no sound check.
Yeah.
I'd be probably terrified until the intro started, but
Well, like you said, at least you're running one mix.
that's it. Yeah, I'm running one mix, so it's way easier for me.
Yeah, you know, not easy that way, but what I would, for me, if I had to start from scratch, it would be a little bit more of an ordeal, I would say. But I will probably keep it a little simpler. Like if it's an emergency situation and I have to start from zero, then I will probably, for the musicians, I'll probably build one mix and then copy paste it to everybody, and I just make their instrument louder for everybody else, and then move on from them, and then focus on my artists, obviously. If there's no time to fine tune it, but I guess the time that it will take will depend on how detailed we will want to get. Now, I have files all over the place. In fact, with Enrique, I do have files that are saved with our production team. I have files on Dropbox. I have files through my email. I have files on different thumb drives. I have files on my laptop. I have files everywhere. And because a lot of our stuff, like Brad was saying earlier, we're creatures of habit. We don't really change everything every day. We're not changing gains. We're not changing, so even if we find a file that was from last year, we could probably even start the show without just with a quick line check. It wouldn't be that detrimental. But if we had to, just to be more specific to your question, if we had to start from scratch, I don't know, maybe it will take me maybe a little longer, unless I'm forced to dial him up in 30 minutes or something.
Now, would you go to catering before or after starting the?
If it's an emergency, I'd probably go after. If they say you got an hour, then I'd probably go to catering first.
Yeah, for sure.
We got to stay hydrated and fed,
You might not do so well if you're hungry. You're going to be hangry at front of house.
This doesn't happen by accident. You know what I'm saying? This takes a lot of work. You know what I mean?
I know.
But that was a great question. Let me see who else. Oh, Jamar joined us too.
All right. For Jamar to finish my song.
Yeah. Angel from Puerto Rico. What's going on? Dan Kinney says that mole. Now that's some intellectual property right there.
There's about 49 ingredients to a great mole too.
Right? Michael Sweeney. Let's see what it says. He says, so I was watching our Rivage webinar, and they do not have an independent gain structure. But I seem to recall that you guys do. Is that correct? Or who drives? Well, we're not using gain sharing. I'm assuming that's what he's referring to, right, Brad?
Yes.
Well,
but I think Rivage does have independent, you can have your own stage racks with a Rivage.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you can gain share. I'm pretty sure it goes either way.
You can do both, right? I've only used it for 3 days when I was doing a private testing or whatever. Great console. There were some odd features when it came to snapshots and things like that. There's a feature that I use a lot when I'm doing snapshots, which I love about Avid, which is the absolute or relative values to your snapshot or to whatever change you made. That to me is invaluable, and the Rivage didn't have that, but of course it has a bunch of other stuff in the Neve Silk and this and so many other things that is pretty cool too. It sounded really good. So yeah, as far as to answer Michael, what I recall is that yes, you can do either independent gain or gain sharing on the Rivage, I believe. I know for sure independent stage racks, right?
My friend Bob Ranalli says you can do both.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, as far as us goes, we each have our own stage racks at the moment. We've done the gain sharing thing and it works great. You don't even notice what's happening.
That's true. And we were worried at the beginning because was it that time in Sardinia? It was, right?
Yep.
It wasn't planned that way, but we were already in Sorrento, I believe. And another gig came about a day and a half later or something. And they were like, okay, so this is in an island. They can get you the consoles, but they're each going to have one stage rack. I'm like, so either we have to consolidate the input list or gain sharing. And we went with gain sharing, so nothing will have to change. We could just keep our setup the same. We're big believers, I think, that we don't want to be changing the structure of the show, because if one day we tell the guys, oh, we're short on channels, the percussions can't have, these drums won't be able to be mic'd up or whatever. We don't do that. We always try to keep it consistent, even in smaller places. We keep the input list the same, and whether we use them in their ears or in the house, then it's up to us at that point. But we try to keep it the same, so there's no weird repatching, so we're not confusing anybody. Everything will remain the same, you know?
Yeah. We go out of our way to make sure that things are consistent and the same.
Yes.
Or it's a one-off or or an arena tour.
Yeah, and that's important for the artists. It's important for us, for our crew, right?
Yeah, and because we carry all the microphones that we use, we know that the gains are never going to change. I mean, unless the amplifier on stage, something changes with the guitar patch.
Correct.
But then we know that it's the guitar patch and it's not, something we're doing.
Yep.
Oh.
But that consistency makes a big difference for everybody.
Passive split and carrier microphones, gains pretty much stay the same.
So there's a guy here, Rafael Valdez, says, Brad, eres el mejor.
What'd he say?
He says, you suck.
He was an exchange student in my high school in our senior year.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Well, he says you're the best, and I agree with him.
Thank you, Rafael.
I agree with him. Old school, throw and go. Yeah, Mauricio. So everyone, Mauricio says back up your files and send one to your cloud, email, USB, external hard drive. Yes, all of that. Let's see, who says? Dave says, as far as workflow goes, Brad, do you work from groups and parallel compression, output-wise subs on an aux?
Yes, I always do groups. I always do parallel compression. And I always bus everything to VCAs as well. And depending on the moves that I'm going to make, if it's a 1 or 2 dB bump, I may go to the VCA. If it's a bigger bump, I'm going to go to the group and ride that because I can drive the group and not hit any additional compression except for what's being put on the master bus. So yes to all of that. And output-wise, I put my subs on a matrix. And that I started doing out of necessity when I worked with Garbage because we did a lot of festivals. Most of the time, I never got to hear the PA. The only thing I got to hear was the band that was on before we were about to perform, which really didn't do me any good as far as, knowing how the PA was set up. So left, right, sub, front fill. My mix was dialed in, so I knew once the intro started, I need more or less sub. It's one fader move. It's not, redialing things into the aux. And I'm not a big believer of subs on an aux. I mean, subs on a matrix is kind of it's kind of a similar concept, but
that's a little different because you're sending everything to that, right?
I'm sending everything to the matrix, yeah. But because of high pass filters, I'm not worried about my vocal getting into the subs.
Correct.
High pass filter on every single input, even the kick drum. Kick drum's not full range.
Yeah. I mean, I always like subs on a matrix.
Yes, always on a matrix.
On an aux, it always seemed odd to me.
And I'll take subs in stereo if I can. The PA's in stereo. Why can't I have the subs in stereo?
Yeah.
And I think sonically, you can hear a bit of a difference when the subs are in stereo versus just a big mono block of sub.
Yeah. Even though they're omnidirectional, you feel that if they were in stereo, you can kind of feel a little bit like even the floor tom might lean a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say 100%, but I feel like it was different with subs in stereo. And, it was a show in Durango that we did when Raul was there. And Raul from JBL was the systems engineer that day.
Yeah.
And that's where he's like, hey, how do you want the system set up? And I'm like, like I always do, left, right, sub, front fill. He's like, okay. And then he's like, hey, let's try subs in stereo. And then we did it and we're listening. And it's like, it seemed like there was just a little more separation maybe.
It's a little wider on the low frequencies, probably, on the very low frequency.
It just seemed a bit better. You don't always have that luxury, but definitely subs on a matrix every time.
I like that too. I agree.
Unless I've worked with a systems engineer for the past 10 years and he knows exactly how I'm going to mix, then maybe I can have the PA just, left, right. And I don't need the subs on a separate feed. But I always find that no matter how much I stay at unity with my matrix sends, my matrix outputs, that, there's some point of the show where I may pull the sub back, at some point, because now the audience is in there and something's changed a little bit, so.
Well, your sub stuff, when I'm able to go out and listen to it, it's always very clean. Like, it's not like sometimes in concerts there are overwhelming amounts of sub, and when I listen to an album or if I listen to music through a system or in the studio or whatever, that's not how the records were done. They don't have that much low end. Like, they have the low end information, and they're supposed to fit in a certain place in that song, but sometimes you go to a concert and it's all low end, the vocal and anything that is on the full range side sounds tiny in comparison. Mm-hmm. That's not balanced to me. But somehow you always have that philosophy or your approach is always that, it feels big and punchy, but you hear the whole range. And that's something that I really enjoy when I hear your mixes, that you hear the whole range of things. The top, the middle, everything.
I think I can attribute that to spending a lot of time with the mix on near fields and getting the mix dialed in to where, I'm on a set of near fields that I know, and I know how my mix is going to translate from the near fields to the PA. And I'm not going to mix into the near fields with a sub heavy mix. That's not, like you say, it's not how you do it.
Yeah.
I like all of the PA. I like the sub. I like everything.
And of course, we're going to push it a little bit. We're going to enhance that, if we're trying to achieve that album sound or to represent the artist's music, it still has to sound live. So it's always going to have a little extra punch and things here and there, but it doesn't have to be an overwhelming amount, right? I guess that's...
The kick drum is not the lead singer.
Exactly.
There's much more to the PA than low end.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Jamie Brock says, it's so refreshing to hear a live video on social media that has good audio.
Well, there you go, Eddie. There's
It only took us how many tries?
It took a few tries.
It's so weird because this whole streaming thing has kicked my ass. I know you've been learning also OBS and all stuff to do your masterclass, which is coming up soon, guys.
Yes, I do want to mention that.
Go ahead. Brad is going to have a masterclass coming up soon. I'm going to have one coming up soon. One in English, one in Spanish. But Brad, tell us about yours, which I think you kind of may have a date already, maybe?
I do have dates, and I want to say, I'm going to have to look at my email real quick.
You're not prepared? What kind of operation is this in Southern Ninjas?
Hey, the audio sounds good.
That's all we care about, yeah. Read your teleprompter.
Where's my wife?
It's pronounced Wi-Fi.
Dates are going to be July 13th and July 15th at 1 p.m. Central Time, so 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. That will be my Fixing to Get Mixing class in 2 parts. It's going to be different than what I do when I'm in a live setting in a room full of people and a PA and near fields and everything and a console. But I'm still going to touch on the same sort of philosophy, my take on how I learn to mix and what's important to me as a mixer. So July 13th and July 15th, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Fixing to Get Mixing, Part 1 and Part 2.
Oh, you speak...
I speak too. You didn't know that, did you?
I love it.
And tell us, and you're going to do a class too now that I've prodded you and told you have to do it.
Yeah, I've been, because of this whole streaming thing and the audio issues that come with it, or inconsistency in audio, it's really hard for me to even jump on board and doing it. I guess I could record it and then broadcast it, but I want to do it live because I think it's cool to have the interaction. So I've been procrastinating when it comes to that as far as doing a masterclass. Now, you and I were talking about this a couple of days ago, and you just pushed me and said, just do it. Just go live, do it. If it's perfect, good. If it's not, also good. And let's just do it. So I don't have a date yet, but I might go live in a few days or in a week, and I'm gonna possibly just because I don't have a live console here with me. I'm probably just gonna deconstruct a mix and show you guys how I do things in the studio and how I do a hybrid of things in the studio and live, and we can talk a little bit about that as I do it. And just stay tuned because I'll at some point I will announce the date when I have it.
You're going to do it.
I'm going to do it because Brad is pushing me to do it also. Right?
Exactly.
Let's see who else here. Thanks for that comment, by the way, Jamie.
Oh, there's a good one. On high pass filters.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you. You go ahead.
I'm going to go kick drum. I will normally always go.
But what's the question, though? So people hear it. Oh, let me say it. I'll say it and you answer. So how far can you go with a low pass filter in kicks and bass?
Kick drum, I feel like I can always start at 35 hertz. Always as a starting point. Bass guitar.
But he's saying low pass.
Oh, low pass. I'm sorry. Low pass filter. Low pass, I don't do anything on the kick drum as far as low pass filter goes. Bass guitar, maybe I'll go down to maybe 6K.
And that's mostly if it's like noisy or clicky or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe kick drum. You know what? I'm gonna take that back on the kick drum. I could probably low pass that down to say 10 or 12K. You know, because I'm probably only going to do a bump around, somewhere between 8 and 10 on the top end of the kick drum, depending on what type of kick drum I'm looking for. I just like a nice punchy kick drum with a nice little bit of top end on it.
When you do that bump, do you do it as a shelf or you do it as a bell?
I'll do it as a shelf. Yeah.
Cool. Now, I'm assuming he said low pass, so I'm assuming that's exactly what he meant, if you use a low pass, right?
I misread that.
Yeah. But that's what I'm assuming. Yeah. So either way you use it. So.
Yeah. I mean, I make use of high and low pass on a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it cleans up a lot of things before even touching the EQ.
Well, we always focus because the analog consoles didn't really have it a lot.
Well, not back in the day.
No. So we always focus on the high pass filter. That's our friend, right? And I know Jim Yakubuski, he always talks about that. Like he can start the show with just gain and high pass as well. Because you should be able to at least get going. That cleans it up.
Sometimes I find that you can go higher with the high pass filter than you think you can when trying to clean the muddiness of a channel.
Yeah. Especially if it's stuff that you're not going to use. It just gives you room to even increase the gain a little bit. So you can cut it all the way to 160 or 200 and bump up the gain, and you end up with exactly what you needed,
And depending on the slope also.
Yeah.
How much rolling off.
Yeah. So high pass and low pass, I mean, I've been using the low pass quite a bit in the last few years, and I didn't used to before. And I think the same way that it cleans stuff up on the low end, I think it's important to learn and take advantage of that tool that we have now that we can clean up stuff on the high end that we don't need.
Exactly.
Yep. Let's see. Mauricio says, I still can't wrap my head around Matrix. I need to study that. Yeah, you and all of us. We're still trying to get our head around it.
I'm still trying to get my head around Mole.
What is your choice on near fields, Bradley Dean, when prepping a mix for a tour?
Well, I tend to use the ones that I have here in my studio, which is the JBL 708s, or I have a pair of Adams A8Xs. I like to stick with a near field that's going to give me the full range. I don't want to add a sub into my near fields. Something that gives me, like 35 hertz and up. But I mean, I've dialed my mix in on, Genelec 1031s. Some of the other JBL lines, I can't remember the name. But, it's pretty much any near field that I'm familiar with If I have to dial my mix in on something I'm not familiar with, then the first thing I'm going to do is sit and listen to music that I know and that I know what it should sound like coming through the speakers. And then once I've done that, then I can start creating my mix on a pair of near fields, because now I familiarize myself with the sound of the box.
Here's a question about squeaky chairs. Why do you use them and why do you like them?
My chair is squeaky.
Put some WD-40 on that thing, man.
It's a stealth chair too, and the damn thing squeaks. Hear that?
Yeah.
I'll get out the WD-40 after a bit. I get my power washer running.
Yeah. Here's Pablo. Pablo has a comment for you, or question, I guess. Brad, after so many years of hired gun musician and professional singer, how do you contain yourself from going up on the stage, picking up a guitar, and lose yourself?
Well, usually I don't have time to walk up on stage because we're generally working all the way up until doors. But every now and then, my good friend Eddie Kaipo gets me up on stage to pick up a guitar.
Oh, do I have that here? No, I don't have that here. I should have. Remember when we did that jam session?
I remember that. You know what? I'm going to say that after being here at home for so long, and all I do at home is play my guitar or bass and sit in my studio, that the next time we go out to mix a show and we have a minute, I'm going up on stage. I'm going to throw down.
We need to jam again.
Jeff and Jason, you guys can just step aside and I'm going to throw down for a little bit. Up there.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
They're going to love that.
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to compare to those guys.
Oh, so it's a Jabez Tough. He says, sorry, he meant high pass on the earlier question.
Yeah, so high pass 35 on a kick drum and anywhere from, 50 to 70 on a bass guitar. It depends on, generally I want the bass guitar to sit around the kick drum. So it also depends on what the bass guitar player is giving me as to what I tend to do. But I'm generally going to start the kick drum at 35 and the bass at probably 60, I would say. How about you? Where do you go?
For bass, I could go sometimes. See, I like high passing a little higher and then adding a bump on those frequencies that I need. So sometimes I may go 80 or 100 and then I'll do a bump right at 60, 70. And it just kind of gives me a rounder thing, but cleaner, Right. That's on the bass. On the kick, same, maybe 35, 40. Especially on my side, that I'm getting a little bit of the pushback from subs or the PA. So I tend to clean up that low end a little bit and make my mixes slightly thinner in the ears, because I'm using your mix to complement mine, That's why when you're tired of our rehearsals and then you shut it off, that's when I go, Brad, come on, man. Leave the PA on for a second. You're like, I'm done. I don't need to hear this for 2 hours.
You know what's great about that, though? And I'm going to pat us both on the back just one time, is that the way we work together to achieve not only what's good for me, but what's good for you. Like, it's not about my mix and it's not about your mix. It's about the whole picture. What's best for Enrique?
Yeah.
That's our approach. And that's a great thing. Maybe we should talk about that in a future episode, is about the relationship between front of house and monitor engineers. That's really, really important. It's not, a lot of people think it's two separate gigs, and yes, it is, but it's also the combination of working together with somebody to achieve the best show possible for your artist and for the audience.
Yeah, because they're the ones right there in the middle. They're in between both of us.
Yeah.
So everything that we do affects how they perform for you guys out there. And whatever you do out there affects how they kind of perceive everything that I'm doing up here as well. So we have to work together. And you and I have a great working relationship, besides being friends and partners in crime, as we always say. But, I think working together, both engineers make a huge difference. Like when I'm working with Gwen and I'm with Jim, same thing. We have that great working relationship, great friendship. Nobody's like imposing their ideas or their ways of doing things. If I'm listening and go, hey, this is what I'm getting when I'm with her mic on the runway. Any chance you're able to kind of check on these boxes, see what they're doing, maybe you can shave these off a little bit or maybe a little less top end, as long as it doesn't affect you outside. And let's check, because I'm hearing something that is odd. And he will check it, and then it turns out that in the house they made some changes on those bottom 3 speakers that weren't to spec, and they were too loud. So when they brought it back to spec, it was even not only for the floor, but it was also better for us on stage.
Yeah.
But it was a collaboration, and it's him not being, no man, don't tell me how to do my front of house. No, it was like, oh, let me look into it, and it's one of those things that you work together. Like you said, it's an important part. This is not about you. It's not about me. It's about making sure our artist is comfortable in all areas.
You're not taking the time to walk all the way down the runway to listen to the artist's microphone and hear the PA just to make it sound good for you. You want your artist you want to know what's happening when they go down there.
Yeah.
You want to make it the best you can be for them.
And every now and then I'll sing too.
You do, and you sing. Your voice is lovely sometimes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Coming from you, especially because you can sing like a mother. You know what I'm saying?
Well, thank you.
I pretend to sing, but I do it in order to really test that microphone. I want to see what it feels like wearing his body pack or her body pack and with a microphone and on the runway, on the C stage, which is behind front of house, actually, for those who haven't seen a show, an Enrique show, there's a stage behind front of house. So we go over there and test not only the wireless to make sure it's all solid, but to make sure that with the delay of the PA coming to me and how it bleeds to the mic and everything's sonically appropriate for him. And all that is a collaborative effort between the both of us. So that's something very important to emphasize.
And your bird-like voice is
Big bird.
helps,
Big bird like.
It helps me determine what the PA is going to do when you're out there.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we got any more questions. Because we're getting to the...
We're getting about there, aren't we?
we're about there. It went by quick. Let's see. You can do both. Yeah, Bob Randall was saying about the gain sharing. You can do it with the CL5 as well. That was up there. Sorry, I went too far back. John Corin, he's a good friend of mine. He's the monitor engineer for the Jonas Brothers. Great engineer, and I work with him with Icona Pop. He's a great guy. He does front of house, monitors, everything. But right now he's monitored for Nick Jonas or the Jonas Brothers. So he asked this question. How do you guys feel about going back to work right now with COVID-19? If you got a call to do a one-off tomorrow, would you do it? Right now, I will say no.
Would you say no?
I will say no. And I know you think I'm crazy because normally I would be like, yes. If the money's right, yes. No. I don't think we're quite ready there yet. I mean, we feel ready, of course. We can't wait to go back to work, but I don't know I don't think we're ready.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would respond.
Yeah.
I guess it would have to depend on where I'm going, where the one-off is. What does it entail? Am I playing for a party for 25 people, or am I doing an arena gig for 10,000?
No, I guess it's important to also say if it's. I guess I shouldn't have said no. I guess it depends. If it's a new gig, the answer will be no. If it's calling us, of course, I guess that was my answer. But a lot of places are opening up, so it's kind of hard for us to gauge when is the right time. Also,
Yeah, I think by the end, I saw an article that was written by Michael Strickland, who's He's like the head honcho of Bandit Lighting. I believe that's his name. And he said we're going to know by June 30th whether we're going to go back to work this year or next year. And it's pretty much based on all the protesting that's been going on. Because how many thousands of people were jammed together for days at a time?
Yeah.
You know,
They're expecting a spike now again.
yeah, not everyone wore masks. So I think we're going to know pretty soon what's going to happen. Of course, we're all hoping that it's going to be that we're going to go back to work soon. It's funny because I've always thought that I was in a business or an industry that never got affected by anything, that no matter what happened, people always wanted to go out and see shows. They always wanted to be entertained. They would always spend the money and go out to a show. And now our industry is hit the hardest
Yeah.
of any industry in the world. You know, we're going to be the last people that are going to probably go back to work on
Yeah.
the scale that we're used to working in.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You know, it's been really hard on a lot of people, friends, and on the industry. You know, it's unheard of that something like this has ever happened.
Yeah, and you think about how many people the music industry employs. I don't think people really realize how big it is and how large.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a good question, John, and it's, you know, I don't know. Would you? I guess I should ask the question back at him too, because he's a working engineer, and you know, he's younger than us, but I also have to, you know, I don't know. It's a tough one because we've never gone through something like this before, you know, and I guess you have to feel the risk. Is it worth the risk? And then come back and potentially maybe infect your family or something, you know, like, plus we still got to get on a plane, you know, right? So I don't know.
what about, 12 to 15,000 people being jammed up in an arena
Yeah.
for what, 3-4 hours? You want to make sure the audience is safe as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it's addressed. Because it's not like you can say, okay, everything's open, let's go. It's like, you go to the grocery store and they're still wiping down the keypad that you enter your credit card into.
Yeah.
So think about 15,000 people now walking into the Staples Center. How are you going to deal with that?
Well, I don't think they would let it be that. I think they were thinking of doing it like with spacing in between, which is then how the hell they're going to make the money to pay for everything?
Well, now think about the artist performing.
Yeah.
Think about what the Enrique show entails. It's the audience is a large part of that show. And to separate them and have them, I don't know.
We need to get in the business of audience holograms.
It just seems like it's going to be somebody. I don't even know how it's going to happen or when.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, obviously we've been ready to go back to work for a while, but I rather play it safe a little longer to avoid any spikes on it. And then once the dust settles, then we can say, okay, let's go back. And it's probably going to be one of the busiest. It's going to go to the extreme. It's going to be the busiest this industry has been at.
Yep.
So hopefully everybody won't start lowballing themselves, or they would try to lowball us, and then we're like, don't just accept all the deals that they get offered.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother.
That's
thing.
a whole other conversation. But yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. Maybe a couple more before we go. Christian joined us. What's up, Christian?
And if we don't get to all these questions, then we'll just go on and answer them in the.
That's true too.
So we will answer the questions.
What is your philosophy on attack release time differences between drum bus compression and drum parallel compression?
Well, in the drum bus group, I want to maintain all the transients, and I want I want the drums to have a nice punchy sound. So my attack time is probably going to be more, I guess slow to, medium. If I were looking at the range, I would say somewhere around 2 o'clock, maybe attack time. I don't know what the milliseconds are. The parallel one is going to be a fast attack, fast release, because I want to just smash all the transients, and I'm looking to get that really aggressive, sound of the parallel bus. And for me, the parallel bus is a way to push the drums forward in the mix without, actually turning them up. So depending on what type of sound I'm looking for, that attack is going to definitely be, fast the majority of the time. Unless I want some of the transients to get through, then I might, ease up on the attack a little bit. But again, the release is always going to be fast. And, the release on the drum bus group is probably going to be, relatively fast as well.
Right on. Let's see. Brad, do you delay the PA to the backline at all?
I do sometimes. It all depends on. Actually, probably haven't delayed the PA back to the backline in a long time, because in the club days and you were fighting stage volume, that was the first thing I did. Put the PA back to the backline. And all of a sudden your mix comes alive. In some of the larger gigs that I've done, again, it depends on backline. If it's a loud backline, yes, always delay the PA back. But in our situation with Enrique, there's no side fills, there's no, wedges, there's a piece of plexi around the drum kit. So
it's a quiet stage.
Volume's not really an issue for me, so I tend to, I'm pretty sure that the PA is generally not delayed back to the backline.
Very cool. All right, Bradley Dean, I think we're getting to the end here.
All right.
But we had great questions today, which is pretty cool. Once again, we want to thank everybody for joining us today and for asking us all these really cool questions, putting us on the spot. Danny, by the way, I will look into what you were talking about, Plug-in Alliance. I wasn't too sure exactly what you meant by it, so I'm going to look into it so I don't give the wrong answer, and maybe we'll address it next, or I'll answer something on the message board. But yes, keep them coming. Please stay in touch. Keep liking our page, share it. For whoever just joined us, maybe you can watch the video later, no big deal, and then maybe share it.
Follow on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Yeah, that's all for today. Episode 5 of Sonic Ninjas. More than just audio. Go ahead, Brad.
Just going to say thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Great questions. Keeps the mind young and active with those questions.
That's right. Now we need to go make some pad grapao.
That's right. Maybe next week we'll share our recipe for the pad grapao.
We should, huh? Well, I got your recipe, but your recipe doesn't have onions, so I added onions to it.
Oh, no onions.
You got to have onions.
No cebolla.
Oh, shit. Look, Spanish coming. That's what we're talking about. Now we're talking about. Mauricio, I hope you saw that.
My Spanish is achieving new levels.
I think so. You're really getting there.
I know.
All right. Thank you, Bradley Dean.
I might be able to form a sentence by next week.
Well, let's hope so. We're going to be practicing. Off the air, we'll be practicing.
Right.
All right, Bradley Dean. Love you, brother.
All right. Love you too, buddy.
And see you, everybody, next time. Jeff Subaru, thanks again. Bye.